That's beautiful.
Good morning. We're here in London at the Inner Temple, just outside the Inner Temple Church, with Almudena Bernabeu. Did you say it right?
Almudena Bernabeu. That's very close. That's very close.
Okay. But we're so fortunate. She's an internationally recognized human rights expert. And we're so blessed to have her here today. One of the major saints of our time is Oscar Romero. And he's someone who's tremendous importance for our church. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you became involved in that groundbreaking case.
Absolutely, it will be an honor. I haven't had an opportunity to speak about it, and it's really a real honor to do it for Grace and for you. Well, I was working at the time at the Center for Justice and Accountability, a human rights organization, very much still going in San Francisco. And it was a group of lawyers, professors, Berkeley, practitioners pro bono, at the time at a law firm called Haller Ehrman, who, this case is under a couple of tort statutes called the Alien Tort Statutes, the ATS and the TVPA, and Torture Victims Protection Act, will allow for victims of international crimes to bring civil suits before U.S. courts for what we consider violation of international norms. Crimes such as torture, crimes against humanity, as we know them, war crimes. And one of the requirements, and perhaps pretty conditioning, or perhaps they made them not less popular, but tough sometimes to pursue, was that the defendant needed to be physically in the United States. The plaintiffs, ironically, by following the law, they could be from anywhere in the world, aliens in this, as the law will say, but the defendant needed to have very strong ties to the United States of being there. So we did discover that one of the people involved in the organization and in the assassination of Archbishop Romero was living in, at the time, Modesto, California. So it was a time, we're talking about, just to contextualize it a little bit, 2003. So it was at a time where people may remember that it was a little bit of a wave in different countries. In Spain, began with following the suit against Augusto Pinochet, the dictator from Chile.
Right.
So it was a little bit of a moment where lawyers and legal activism, for lack of a better word, around the world were looking into their own national law to see if they could find remedies for the victims. And this was a tremendous opportunity. So on behalf of one of the relatives of Monsignor Romero, we filed the suit, which became an absolute and extraordinary experience as the defendant ran away, but then the Department of Homeland Security stepped in to do a wanted following a reward or ransom, as you call it, and it was just it actually ended up being a full week trial in Fresno where we were able to present a lot of the evidence against this Captain Alvaro Sarabia was his name, and we obtained a judgment which was very unique and perhaps not to be over technical, but it was very important from the legal perspective, and the decision is published, so it's out there if anybody's interested, because it really, one crime, it was obviously the killing of one person, Monsignor, and the judge decided to push a little bit the envelope, if I may, by calling it a crime against humanity. Although legally a crime against humanity doesn't require many deaths, it is kind of implicit that it may have a serious number. But for him, the power of the symbolic element of who Archbishop Romero was for its own people, because he was killed at a time where he had made a routine on Sundays, which I'm sure people know of, in his sermon. Very, very, if you think about it as a pioneer, he will do his sermons on Sundays, broadcast, to reach as many people in the country as they were going through a very rough, the beginning of a civil war, as we understand it. And he wanted everybody to listen to his messages. And in his messages, there was resistance, resilience, hope, no resignation. He was really empowering the people of El Salvador to stay tight, to stay strong, but to be objective about, and actually at some point he compelled the army, the armed forces of El Salvador, to stop the violence, to
Right,
stop
right.
repressing and killing people. And just a week later, he was assassinated.
Yeah.
So it was, I still get the
I know, I feel the
goosebumps.
same way. I feel it was such a powerful moment in world history.
And when the judge, a conservative judge, who had been a former, I think, in the Air Force, if
Right,
I'm not
right.
mistaken, when he took, and he really wanted, you could feel it, that he wanted to verbally convey that judgment, that
Yes.
decision. And when he said that by killing, he said something, I'm paraphrasing, but and of course the decision again is out there, but he said something such as the killing of one person it really was sought out to kill the spirit of the
Right,
entire
whole people.
country.
Yes, exactly.
And it was just such an honor to be part of that case.
Yeah, well, I wonder, I mean, I don't remember very many conflicts where there have been so many talk about human rights violations, like as the conflict is getting underway. As in Ukraine, it's almost, both the Russian side and the Ukraine side have been referring to just like human rights violations as almost as like a tool of propaganda. And I wonder what it sounds like for you as a lawyer, you know, what's going on and just what your colleagues are talking about in terms of the conflict in the war in Ukraine.
You know, I really appreciate, Malcolm, that question, because I have an answer that is not necessarily all one answer. You know, obviously what is happening is horrendous. Obviously, I think that the decision, the unilateral decision of Russia to invade, but I will say there is one good thing and one bad thing about the treatment from the international criminal legal perspective and human rights that the Ukraine war has been happening. The very positive thing, which I think there's no way back, which as a practitioner, marginal practitioner in this field, I have to be nothing but proud, is for the first time everyone talks about accountability.
Right, exactly.
You know, at the Security Council, they're my parents, but you know what I mean. My parents are people that are not sophisticated.
Exactly.
My mom and my
Ordinary
dad
people.
are talking. Ordinary people are talking about accountability, and in minds and political spectrums, what it was so difficult as a practitioner on behalf of the victims to say, no, you need to talk about accountability. It's not mercy.
Yeah.
It's not compassion.
Right.
It is the right of the victim. And I was rejected and I was controversial.
Yes,
and now finally everybody, so that is the very positive. The negative part, and this very much is my personal opinion, or professional, but with personal connotations, is that it is the legal criminal or international criminal law cannot be the solution of a conflict.
Right.
A conflict requires a political and a diplomatic solution and an end to it. And then after that, we will talk about, and I also think that the criminal, as much as I love, and it is my field of law, it's narrow, like all legal instruments. It's narrow, it's punitive.
Right.
I think that we need to really change a little bit things, hopefully, towards the future. We need to understand the context of what happened in Ukraine, because the Ukraine invasion started in 2014 for the Ukrainians.
Right,
it's
exactly.
not just
It's been
2022.
going on for a long time, exactly.
So I think that international law, as important as it is, cannot be the tool yet.
Right.
It should be there,
Yeah.
absolutely on the table, but we
Right.
need to do a few things. That's my opinion, and that's why I kind of holding my team to get involved until we can see a little bit an end. And I mean, and they're phenomenal. The Commission of Inquiry just begun. But that's a little bit of the good and the bad, perhaps. I do believe that we're going to see the world changing when it comes to, prosecution, investigation of international crimes, perhaps even the value of the International Criminal Court. Frankly, this is a U.S. audience, and I'm also a U.S. person. I mean, frankly, the own position of the United States government towards the international commitment to have an international criminal court, that most of the modern northern and western front are part of it.
Exactly.
So we'll see.
So hopefully this will encourage the American government to be more involved in a helpful way.
I hope so. At least less critical, more constructively.
Yeah.
I'm not naive, or that naive anyway, that the U.S. is going to join the ICC, but I think that they can see the value, and perhaps some mentalities can start, shifting a little bit. That would be lovely.
Yeah, and I mean, part of this is having things available online. I mean, it's so interesting to hear that Oscar Romero, the part of that, what made that case what it was his public presence.
Exactly, and for what is made me think about it actually just now, because of the whole misinformation of all this that is happening, which is a big thing that we're fighting against, is how the Russians have suppressed all internet access for the Russian people. And I'm in touch with lawyers and colleagues within Russia, and then they're getting the information. So the more information than ever, as it is, with social media, and the more confused we are, and the most perhaps precariously informed we are. And I was thinking that Monsignor Romero, the armed forces of El Salvador, with at the time acquiescence of the U.S. government, which everything has to be said, they were, what do I want to say, dirtying a little bit the waters in the sense that they start saying that what he was saying was a lie, that he was making it up, that people were reporting human rights violations, and actually he did, which at the time was completely secret. Today both of them are good friends, and one of them became a Supreme Court justice. He had 2 lawyers working on an almost clandestine way. They will go to the field on behalf of Monsignor, and we'll talk to the people, and we'll talk to the soldiers when it was safe, and obviously the guerrillas in the different areas, to get information. So Monsignor was so precise as to have someone in the field to get information.
So that he would be correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's fact-checking himself.
Misinformation back in 1980.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm so grateful for you showing us around this inner temple, and just for your work too. It's such a blessing. I mean, we can't all be as involved in these questions as you've been, but it's so great to know that someone's working on our behalf in this way.
I have to say, and not because we're chatting, but in all of these years, actually, just having the Anglican Church and many colleagues within Grace and beyond, it's always being a constant reminder and a constant support. So fabulous. It's a pleasure.
My name is Malcolm Clemens Young. I'm the Dean of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, California. Thanks for watching More Good News.